Also, we saw a little earlier some clashes with police between the protesters and the police. Some demonstrators had tried to break the police line. They were, however, were met with pepper spray. Some 700 police have been deployed to the CBD to deter this particular march. This 700 police includes mounted police as well. Now, earlier today, Victoria Police Chief Commissioner Shane Patton had said that police had already handed out fines to people who had planned to join this rally. This, of course, comes a month after thousands had attended a similar rally in police. None of them had been wearing masks. There had been concerns that that event would have become a super spreader event. Now, just as an aside, Melbourne is under lockdown, and just as of 1 p.m. today, regional Victoria also joining Melbourne in that particular lockdown as well. This is due to a growing cluster or an outbreak in Shepparton. So obviously people in Victoria, in Melbourne in particular, very frustrated at the continued lockdowns and restrictions that they have to live under. But as you can see, that rally currently rather peaceful at the moment. Earlier, as I mentioned, there had been some clashes with police, but now rather peaceful. We will continue to keep you up to date on this rally as the day moves on. I want to move on to other news now, and border restrictions are causing havoc for the residents of Mungindi on the Queensland-New South Wales border. The border cuts through the middle of town, isolating locals, as John Daly reports.
Mungindi has been cut in half by Queensland's strict border with New South Wales. Residents on one side are in lockdown, while neighbours just a few hundred metres away are living in relative freedom. Services are split. The local shops, school, ambulance and pharmacy are on the New South Wales side, while the hospital and healthcare clinic are on the other Queensland side. And it's really complicating everyday life in this quaint country town.
It means that Queenslanders can go and get the basics that they need, but they have to isolate when they come back over the bridge. Even if we're just 5 minutes over in town, we still have to isolate for 14 days.
Police are only letting through essential workers and people with permitted medical reasons. And from today, everyone crossing town needs to have at least one vaccine dose. For the past few days, locals have been lining up for hours at the hospital for a jab. The tough restrictions are causing frustration. Some residents want some special consideration and a reinstated border bubble.
I just don't think they realise the distances that we've got to travel out here. We've done 5 years of drought. We've had a mouse plague. Now we've had COVID for nearly 2 years. I think they've got to have a bit of understanding for our community out here.
COVID cases are creeping north, even to the neighbouring border shire of Walgett. The Queensland government says border controls are critical to preventing the spread of Delta. It's unclear when this community will be reunited.
John Daly there reporting from Mungindi. Now, we are going to return to the situation in Melbourne, where there are live pictures that we can bring to you of an anti-lockdown rally that's currently taking place across the CBD. As you can see there, people holding up signs protesting the current lockdown that Melbourne and now regional Victoria is coming under. This is Melbourne's 6th lockdown. Of course, people expressing their frustration. Earlier on, we had seen police out in full force, some arrests taking place as well. There had been some demonstrators who had tried to break the line of police. However, they were met with pepper spray. And earlier on, we also saw some clashes between police and these demonstrators. However, you can see now that rally seems to be taking place quite peacefully. 700 police have been deployed to deter this march across Melbourne's CBD, and that includes mounted police as well. Now, I want to take you now to Sydney, where a similar rally had also been planned as well. And New South Wales police say that they are out in full force to try to deter this planned anti-lockdown protest. But as you can see there, we've only seen just police out in full force, not we haven't seen anyone actually marching in the streets of CBD as Sydney CBD as yet, unlike those pictures coming out of Melbourne at the moment. However, as you can see there, police are actually stopping cars and they're checking to make sure that people are actually entering the CBD for valid reasons and not to attend these planned protests. Now, transportation, share rides, taxis have also been warned that they will be fined if they are found to be carrying these protesters into Sydney's CBDs. You can see there, the streets there in Sydney rather empty, more police than there are cars. However, you compare that to what's happening in Melbourne CBD at the moment, where there seems to be a peaceful anti-lockdown rally that's occurring at the moment. However, Victoria Police are out in full force there to try to deter the march from progressing any further. We will continue to keep you up to date on these protests in both cities. However, with New South Wales in a statewide lockdown and Victoria reaching a critical stage in its latest outbreak, all eyes now turn to the vaccination thresholds as a strategy to reopen the country. Professor Mary-Louise McLaws is an epidemiologist and the advisor to the World Health Organization, and she says that the latest lockdown measures allow vaccinations to catch up with Delta's rapid spread.
Look, I think it's probably more to try to stem it, because the 16 to 39-year-olds aren't really being prioritized until the end of the month. And that's only a few days away. And then, of course, the authorities are talking about lifting restrictions at the end of September. And that's really only, 42 days away. So if we were going to try to vaccinate, there's about 2.2 million people in New South Wales aged 16 to 39 who haven't had one dose yet. That's a lot of New South Wales people, and they'd really have to do over 100,000 injections a day between now and the end of September, which is really only 41 days, so that some of the risk of transmission would stop, because it's that 16 to 39-year-old group who are inadvertently transmitting it, because they represent nearly 40% of all cases at the moment. And so if you wanted to stem that acquisition transmission cycle, you'd have to start getting them vaccinated with the first dose to then get the second dose. And it's really only that second dose that really reduces the risk of symptomatic infection and therefore the risk of transmission, because that first dose stops you from dying and the second dose in the young will stop them transmitting it. So I think it's more trying to stem the spread, because curfews can work well if the majority of cases are occurring during socializing and during, darkness, when people can pop out and go and visit friends, they think, safely.
And that's Mary-Louise McLaws, their epidemiologist and advisor to the WHO. Well, let's take a look now at where we're at with the vaccine rollout nationally. Well, more than 300,000 doses were administered in the country yesterday, and that takes the total number of doses to more than 16.5 million. We're now going to take you back to Melbourne, where an anti-lockdown rally is currently taking place across the CBD at the moment. As you can see there, people marching in defiance of the current health regulations that's in place due to the lockdown that's in Melbourne, which will now extend to the regional Victoria as well. Now, earlier on, we had seen police and demonstrators clashing with each other But as you can see now, that rally seems to be taking place rather peacefully. Some demonstrators had tried to break a police line, but they were then met with some pepper spray. We also saw some mounted police there trying to corral the demonstrators into a specific place. And the demonstrations, as you can see now, rather peaceful. Now, Victoria Police Chief Commissioner Shane Patton had said that police had already handed out fines to people who had planned to attend this particular rally. However, as you can see, hundreds of people not deterred by those fines at all, and not deterred by the threat of more fines or jail, and are instead choosing to express that frustration at the 6th lockdown that Melbourne is currently undergoing. As you can see now, they're walking through the streets of CBD, and I'm not sure, but it does seem that police are corralling them or trying to direct them through a certain way or a certain direction. We will leave that protest now. It's rather peaceful for now, and we're going to leave that protest, but we will come back to it a little later, and we'll continue to keep you updated on the situation there in Melbourne. However, we're going to change tack and change gears now, and this year's wet winter has sparked an explosion of colour in Western Australia's Midwest as the wildflower season blooms on a massive scale. But the profusion of flowers isn't just the product of good rain.
A sea of colour in the Midwest. Good winter rain has brought on a bumper wildflower season, attracting floral fanatics from across the state.
Oh, the flowers are gorgeous. I just haven't seen them this good in many, many years.
Solid winter rains have contributed to the extra bountiful display this year, but it's not all the result of more abundant water.
We've got a diversity of species, so it's thought that that diversity is related to our more ancient landscapes and the long period of isolation that our plants have had to adapt and find new ways to thrive in that landscape.
Some plants have gone to extreme lengths to survive.
We've got a group